a headset. If you require, you can wear headsets for English, Vietnamese, and vice versa translations. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, lecturers, and colleagues, today Hu Chi and the members of the CAMaRSEC projects, the climate adapted material research in the social economic context of Vietnam organized the workshop to finalize the project at the Hu Chair. The project has been done by the BMBF for the period of 4 years, 2019, 2019 and 2023, and it was 5 years now. The times really flight, and after the difficult time of the pandemic, we have 4 years of the project up to now. This is a project to establish the new directions in the construction areas, aiming at promoting research, practice, and application, as well as the technology transfer of the research result as to serve as the basic to analyze a sustainable construction practice. Today workshop is about the interdisciplinary issues of sustainable construction practice. I'd like to introduce the representative of the project today, and as well as our guest, I'd like to introduce Professor Dr. Dirk Squider, Institute of Quebec. He is also the project leaders from the German side. I'd like to introduce Dr. Michael Weyben, the University of Hamburg. Professor Dr. Gordon Hartwig from Institute for Architectural Physics from Hoffer.
Building physics.
Professor Andrei Jegovic, Architecture for the Building Physics Institute. At the online conference, we like to introduce some of our guests, Mr. Megan Wizarek, a member projects from the Sassoni State School of Civil Engineering. Hi, Megan. And then I have Mr. Matthias Matt, a representative of BMBF Research Fund. And I'd like to introduce Mr. Stefan, directors of the GIG, also participating online. This is a online participant from Vietnamese side. I'd like to introduce Dr. Lưu Thị Hồng, Deputy Director, Institute of Building Materials. Dr. Đào Việt Hà, Vice Rector, Representative of the Urban Construction College. And so Associate Professor Dr. Ngô Lê Minh, Representative of the Tôn Đức Thắng University, Head of Graduate School. From the University of Civil Engineering, I'd like to introduce Assistant Professor Dr. Phạm Xuân Anh, Vice Principal, Vice Rector of the University. Mr. Dr. Nguyễn Tiến Dũng, the Head of International Cooperation Department. Also, we have the Associate Professor Dr. Nguyễn Phương from the Urban Management School. Also, we have the teacher, lecturers, as well as the faculties, guests from
the
press media. We also would like to introduce Professor Nguyễn Hiếu Dũng, the chairman of the Environment and Building Associations. And now I'd like to introduce our program agenda for today. So agenda consists of the overview and guest introductions, and then we will listen to the welcoming process remark from Hu Che from CAMaRSEC, and also we will listen to representation from the interdisciplinary approach by project members, and we will conclude with the discussions on the achievements and the way forward. And lastly, we have a closing remark by the head of project manager. This is an agenda for our workshop conference today. And now I'd like to introduce and invite Associate Professor Dr. Phạm Xuân Anh, Vice Rector of the HUC, to deliver his Professor Resquire from UBEC, CAMaRSEC project manager, as well as professors, representative of partners from Germany online as well as on-site here today. Professor Lưu Thị Hồng, Vice Directors of the Institute of Building Materials, MOC, Dr. Đào Việt Hà, Vice Rector of the Urban Building College, and the Associate Professor Nguyễn Phương, Vice Rector Institute for the Construction and Urban Management. Ladies and gentlemen, lecturers, colleagues, domestic and international, online and offline. First of all, on behalf of HUC, I'd like to warmly welcome all of you to our conference, finalizing conference for CAMaRSEC, Climate Adapted Material Research in the socio-economic context of Vietnam. Welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, December 2019, the Hanoi University of Civil Engineering, together with 5 partners from Germany and 3 Vietnamese partners, has been organizing the kick-off workshop for the CAMaRSEC project. Up to now, after 4 years, including 2 years of pandemic, I'm very glad that we have a chance to meet together in the finalizing conference for the project today. This is an interdisciplinary research project aiming at promoting sustainable building practice as well as implement technologies to solve global issues, improve the capacities of the Research Institute of Germany as well as Vietnam. Ladies and gentlemen, the main goals of our workshop today is to review and to assess the achievements of our project, to maintain, to ensure the effective building framework for Vietnam in the context of living and integrating technical foundations as well as the resource usage utilizations. Also, conference will discuss about the policies and practices for effective energy usage to protect resources in the Vietnamese urban areas. Also, to connect the users of the building in creating safe and comfortable and healthy living conditions for the tenant. I'm very glad that project has obtained more than expected, achieved that more than expected. One of the reasons is that we have been organized a sustainable CCSB, Sustainable Center for Energy, Sustainable Energy Use in Vietnam, with headquarters in Hieu Chi. This center can work standalone after the project finish to continue to research content of the project in the long term. Besides the successful establishment of the centers. The project also have produced valuable publications. The book on guideline for green building and healthy living, and launch of the books will be organized today after evening at the Goethe Institute in Hanoi. So, ladies and gentlemen, to achieve those success, on behalf of Hanoi University of Civil Engineering, I'd like to convey my gratitude to the Minister of Education and Research of Germany for its collaborations and financial support for the project. I'd like to also thank the Ministry of Education and Training of Vietnam, Ministry of Construction of Vietnam for your support in that project implementations. I'd like to thank the effort of our partners, including Stuttgart University, University of Hamburg, the Fraunhofer Institute for Construction Building Physics, the Vocational College of the San Jose State, Tao Tôn Đức Thắng University, and related associations. I'd like to thank all of you, the distinguished guests, lecturers, colleagues, for your participations in today's workshop. On behalf of UCI, I'd like to wish you health, prosperity, success, and happiness. I wish our conference success. Thank you very much. Well, thank you, Associate Professor Phạm Xuân Anh, Vice Rector, for your welcoming remark. Thank you very much.
Dự án CAMaRSEC là dự án nghiên cứu về vật liệu ứng phó với biến đổi khí hậu trong điều kiện bối cảnh kinh tế xã hội của Việt Nam, là một cái dự án mà theo chúng tôi đánh giá là một dự án có thể tạo thành cú hích trong việc mà phát triển xây dựng bền vững tại Việt Nam. Bởi vì đây là một cái dự án có mang tính chất là liên ngành, giữa không chỉ có những cái ngành vật liệu mà còn có ngành xây dựng rồi ngành kiến trúc. Bên cạnh đó thì dự án cũng tạo ra một cái mạng lưới khoa học công nghệ liên kết chia sẻ kinh nghiệm giữa các đối tác quốc tế có kinh nghiệm quốc tế và đối tác tại Việt Nam. Và ngay tại Việt Nam thôi, chúng tôi cũng đã liên kết với nhau giữa các trường đại học cũng như là các cái trường đào tạo nghề và các viện nghiên cứu quốc gia từ Bắc vào Nam để đưa ra những cái đầu tiên là chúng tôi tiến hành những cái khảo sát về điều kiện thực tế tại Việt Nam. Sau đó là chúng tôi đưa ra những giải pháp để có thể là phát triển, thúc đẩy cái việc phát triển xây dựng bền vững tại Việt Nam.
Yes, the interdisciplinary approach was very important for the CAMaRSEC project, and we designed the project in the first place to have different perspectives on the topic of sustainable building and also sustainable living in Vietnam. It was not only about different disciplines, but also, of course, a collaboration and the very close cooperation between Vietnamese colleagues and the German colleagues. And this interdisciplinary perspective gave us opportunity to understand better the situation. So we had people who were looking at the social economic dimensions of sustainable building and also sustainable living in Vietnam. They'll ask questions about the energy cost, for example, the affordability of living, and who is living in the apartments and so on. And then we had a group of people, of engineers who were doing measurements in building to understand about indoor environmental quality. That was about temperature, humidity, and also the air quality, CO2 concentration. And this gave us some insight about how the buildings are used, how they are operated, if people use free ventilation, natural ventilation, or how often air conditioning is used. And that was very helpful to analyze then also the energy performance and also the conditions under which the materials have to perform. And our project is called Climate Adapted Material Research, so this was a very important part of it, but all this was informed by the other parts of research, by the other disciplines, so the interdisciplinary approach was very important. We also had a group of people who were working on the education of construction workers, so this is another discipline, that the materials which were investigated in the project can be used in real construction projects, that we have construction and buildings which are durable in future, which perform as they are intended to do. And all this was, let's say, a round project, a complete project, and I think that what made it very successful at the end. Yes, I think we had a good time. We were first planned to work 3 years on the project, but then for Corona and so on, we were able to extend for 4 years, and that gave us opportunity to work closely together and to understand the situation of sustainable construction and also sustainable living in Vietnam. We formed a very good team, and there were cooperations between the different institutions. For example, the Vietnamese Institute for Building Materials worked very close together with the Fraunhofer Institute for Building Physics, and the universities, University of Hamburg and University of Stuttgart, worked together with the Hanoi University of Civil Engineering and also Trong Duc Tan University in Ho Chi Minh City. We also had cooperations of Baubildung Sachsen with College of Urban Work and Construction on the different fields. And because we had the opportunity to meet several times, and also in times of Corona we had a regular exchange online, we were able to develop a good understanding about the situation in both countries, and then also how that can be applied for sustainable building in Vietnam. So I think that was very positive, a very positive experience to work in this setting.
The global COVID-19 crisis has shown that health in an urban environment becomes more and more important. And we as the scientists have to identify new and innovative ways to bring together the dimension of health together with the dimension of building and the living built urban environment. If we look at the use of public spaces, if we look at the use of buildings, if we look at building materials, I perceive a lot of potential to do it in a better way. And our research has shown as well that if you ask people about their life priority, so what is important for the life of the people, for most of them, health is very, very much important. So I see also the dimension of health as an opportunity to convince people to take better decisions towards a more sustainable living environment. So bringing together the urban built environment and health has a lot of potential, in my opinion, great potential indeed, to increase quality of life. And that's basically all. What is it about? People want to have a better quality of life, and we should work on that with health and building.
Tôi xin trân trọng giới thiệu dự án phần và đại diện trường Trong Đúc.
I'd like to introduce Mr. Zimmer, the project managers, to have some remark, please.
Hello, everybody. It's a big honor for me to be here and to join this presentation conference. The CAMaRSEC project actually goes back to the year 2017, and we started a so-called definition phase. So we look back to 6 years altogether of joint research. But even 2 years ago, in December 2015, there was a milestone of the global fight against climate change. On 12 December 2015, the Paris Agreement has been set up. And the Paris Agreement, which has been adopted by 196 countries, among them Vietnam, obliged the participating countries to set the temperature increase well below 2 degrees and to limit the increase altogether by 1.5 decrease. But the recent IPCC report has informed us that the 1.5 degree target has already been crossed. If we look at the temperature increase on the land surface, on the sea surface it's below 1 degree, but on the land surface already now we have passed the 1.5 degree level. I'm telling you this to make the issue of sustainable building even more relevant to you. It's really so urgent that we take measures to become more sustainable. The most recent UNEP report, published in December 2022, said that the building sector is contributing 37% to global carbon emissions. This figure also has been mentioned in the handbook of green housing and healthy living, by the way, by the colleagues from VN. So, 37% is the share of global carbon emissions, and the report from UNEP also said that the operation of buildings becomes more and more relevant. So it's not only the construction process, it's also the use of the building, and the use of the building is related to the building user. That's, by the way, also the way the course why we as Hamburg University join these projects, because we are social scientists. But to achieve sustainability, you need human beings to take better decisions. So it's important not only to listen to the engineers and to install new technology, but to keep in mind that in the end humans have to take better decisions. So, I can only repeat again, it's an honor for me to be here. We are here as Hamburg University and giving the welcome address also as a hosting institution of this conference, because we in the CAMaRSEC project advocated and initiated for a new center for sustainable building, which brings together all the expertise from science, engineering science, social science, and to bundle this knowledge within this center at Hanoi University of Scientific Engineering, and to bring this information also in a science society transfer to the public. Because we need better human behavior, but we also need better policies, and of course we need valid evidence-based scientific information by our colleagues from the field of engineering or building physics, for example. So that's again my point. Probably you know all that, but still we have to speed up, we have to do more, we have to lobby for the construction issues, also in regard of the Vietnam-German Science Day, with the policymakers from the Ministry of Science and Technology, with the German Ministry of Education and Research, because there's always a competition for funding, and of course we have to make clear we need more research and we need more funding in our field. Thanks a lot for your attention.
Thank you very much,
Dr. Michael Wember has been making his PhD project in Vietnam since 2017, and he speaks Vietnamese very well and
He
understands Vietnamese culture. And I'd like to thank you, Professor Michael, Dr. Michael Wember. Next up, I'd like to introduce Dr. Hồng, representing Institute for Building Materials to Construction Materials, to deliver her welcoming speech. Xem là bài nào thì mark cái bài để vào. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very glad to be participating at the CAMaRSEC projects from our institutions. We are a member of the project, and thanks to the CAMaRSEC project, our team has been for a EE building, and I would like to thank you on behalf of our institutions and from on behalf of our leadership, our institutions. Would like to thank the projects. Mr. Birk, Mr. Michael, University of Frankfurt University, and all members of the project for your support and collaborations with our university, with our institutions in implementing the projects. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Hong, for your welcome remark. Institute of the Construction Materials active members of the project. Now I'd like to introduce Professor Westweider to have some opening remark. Professor, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Now it's my turn to welcome you, distinguished guests. Thank you for coming to our presentation conference for the CAMaRSEC project. I want to bring to your attention and to let us recall all the intention of our CAMaRSEC project. When we started, we had the idea of sustainable building in Vietnam, and we wanted to understand what is the sustainable building and how does it work. We talked a lot about transdisciplinary approach and how the different disciplines can inform the ideas of sustainable construction. We had here what you can see in our logo, which was the first idea that we wanted to understand the social economic context, the residential context. We wanted to understand what is resource-efficient utilization of construction material, what is the impact of construction quality, what is the technical foundation of sustainable building, and then also how can that all come together. At that time we saw these are all important topics for sustainable building, and our aim in our project was to bring it all together to develop an approach for sustainable building in Vietnam. Michael and also Hong has talked about the big problems of our time, like climate change and the development, the resource depletion and so on, and all this of course is very important for the CAMaRSEC project. In the course of the long development of the project, it was said that we started with a definition project, and then there was the main project and extension of the project and so on. I think we developed a good cooperation between the partners in order to address all these topics. You can see here also the work packages. It was first the fundamental data collection in all the fields, and then it was evaluation and an analysis of these topics. And then what you can see here that really worked out, that we worked together and integrated these ideas in order to see what building physics does, also what the capacity building and the energy governance does in order to advance sustainable building. I have it here. We wanted to understand the climate. This was part of our research. We wanted to understand the social economic context, the building use and operation, and also the production of materials in order to go in deeper here. And that one of the objectives of CAMaRSEC was also to enable to build up facilities for research in different fields, for example, material research at the Vietnamese Institute for Building Materials, and also to work together between the universities, the Hanoi University of Civil Engineering and Tongtan University, Stuttgart University, to do measurements in buildings. I think this is also something which came out. Training of construction workers is very important, and we will hear about that. So all this contributed. We want to advance the technical standards, governance, the future cooperation, resource efficiency, and it was said that we have all these problems like climate change and so on, and that the construction sector is very important for that. The CAMaRSEC was about to go deep into the topics, but to work transdisciplinary and to address these fields, to do deep research on materials, on the understanding how people use spaces and so on. I think it was very successful. We will hear a lot about the results by the participants at the end. I have to thank everyone who was working on this and who is organizing also here our conferences. Hanoi University of Civil Engineering, of course, Vietnamese Institute for Building Materials, Tongtan University, College of Urban Work and Construction, and from the German side, Fraunhofer Institute for Building Physics, Hamburg University, Stuttgart University, Taurus, our industry partner, and I think Baubildung Sachsen, of course, I should not forget them. We will hear about the results, and I think from my side, I always say this was a successful project. I realized that the topics we wanted to address at the beginning, they became more and more relevant, and there are more topics to address in a similar fashion as we did it in the CAMaRSEC project. So I welcome to this conference, and I hope that we can hear now the results and discuss in detail the achievements, but also what is needed further steps in the sense of the CAMaRSEC project, so that we can, in this group also find out what are the next steps, what are the next projects we want to do. Thank you very much for coming, and now I give back to you.
Thank you, Professor Weisweider. In our project, Professor Weisweider, now after this project will play a role of the full-time professor, the Professor Weisweider, also the project managers and the project coordinators from the Germany side. And now I would like to, after the welcoming remark of University of Civil University and Institute of Civil Building Materials, we will continue with our discussions and presentations from project members. First presentations will be delivered by Dr. Hong from Institute of Building Materials, talking about policies promoting sustainable constructions in Vietnam. Ms. Hong, please, the floor is yours. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to introduce my presentations on promoting sustainable building in Vietnam inside from the policy side. And my presentations will focus on materials as well as laws and decisions of the government on the policies of the construction materials. As we know, the main materials used in the building, including 12 main materials, including cement, ceramic, natural stones, glass, burnt brick, unburned brick, coarse aggregate, and concrete, according to the statistic and predictions. The productions of cement and concrete as well as the clay brick in Vietnam in 2020 are quite large, were quite large. Therefore, the constructions of the building as well as the energy efficiencies for the material productions, so that we can optimize the building, is very important. And here the energy consumptions related to the building materials qualified by materials. According to the statistic, production of 1 ton of cement commonly consume 100 kilowatt electric power and 865 kilowatt heat energies. For the ceramic tiles, it is 1500 kilocalorie per kilogram product and 0.7 kilowatt hours per kilogram of product. As for the sanitary waste, is consume more energies with the heat energy of 100 kilocalorie per kilogram of product, and electric power is 0.6 kilowatt hours per kilogram of product. As for the glass, the heat energy is equal to 1700 kilocalorie per kilogram product. For the operation of the building, according to the statistic and our measurement, there's a 150 kilowatt per hours per square meter per year for the office building, and the energy consumptions of the shopping mall is 220 kilowatt hours per square meter per year, and as for hospital is for 145. So heat transfer through the building walls and glass is quite large, and is about 10 to 40% of the northern regions and 6 to 32% for the southern regions, and the rate of the heat transfer depends on the type of buildings. In terms of the legal documentation and policies, here I list 15 different laws and decree and decisions of the Vietnamese government on materials as well as minerals to produce for production also the materials. We have the Mineral Law 2010, we have the Energy Saving and Efficiency Laws 2010, Environmental Protection Law 2014, we have the Construction Law 2014, Decree number 185 on guiding the mineral law implementation, Decree number 1940 guiding the implementation of environmental protection laws. Decisions we are having 1266 on the strategy of development of the building materials and orientation toward 2050. We have the national and technical regulations on energy efficiency building. Also, we have the resolution number 55 on the orientation of strategy for development of Vietnam national energy to 2030 and vision toward 2040. Resolution number 40 guiding the implementations of Resolution 55, Decision 208 and Decision number 1677 by MOC on the action plan for energy saving and efficiencies. Decision number 882 on National Action Plan to Green Growth in the period of 2021 and 2030. As for the amended construction law, the Article 110 regulated that development, production and use of the building materials must ensure the safety, efficiency, environmental friendliness and reasonable use of natural resources. Material and structures used in the construction work must comply with the approved construction design and technical instructions and ensure quality in accordance with the law and standard and technical regulations and the law on quality of product and goods. Building materials and priority should be given for use of the local materials. As for the Decree number 09 on management of building materials, Article 5 Policy for Development of Mineral Energy Saving Environmental Friendly Building Materials state encourage and enable organizations and individuals to research, develop and apply science technologies and invest in production of mineral and energy saving and environmental friendly building materials. The organization and individual should receive the investment incentive and assistance from the state according to the regulation of the law and related regulations. Prime Minister also introduced roadmaps for limiting and removing building materials production facilities that employ obsolete technologies that consume fuel energy largely and cause environmental protections. Decree number 09 on management building materials, Article 7 articulate that goods and products of building materials and building components used in the construction must meet quality requirement, standard, technical regulation, design, and technical guides. Prime Minister should introduce a roadmap for using unburnt building materials, natural resources, and energy-saving and environmentally friendly building materials, and building material domestically produced for the public investment and non-public investment state funds. And it is advisable to use a resource-saving materials in productions. Also, there are many others decrees and strategies regulating development of construction material, including the construction materials development strategy for 2030 toward 2015. Also regulate the energy use for the construction material productions, as well as the energy use utilizations in the construction in the buildings. And these are my overview of the materials of the strategy of development of building materials to 2030 and 2050 achievement. As for the cement, in terms of the energy consumption for the cement reduced from 850 to 730 kilocalories per kilogram. For ceramic tiles, reduced to 1100 kilocalories per kilogram. For sanitary ware, reduced from 2700 to 2300 kilocalories. For the glass, the heat energy consumption reduced from 1700 to 1500 kilocalories per kilogram of product. And in terms of the national technical regulations, QVC 09 on energy efficiency building, it is clearly regulate the heat transfer ratios as well as the materials used in the building. And it is regulated that the building needs to use the low heat transfer materials to maintain the heat inside the building. Also, the Ministry of Constructions produce or promulgate the labeling energy for building materials, and all including the materials labeled glass for buildings, as well as the plaster or the rooftop material, roofing materials need to
be
label for the heat isolations, heat resistance, and heat transfer, thermal conductivities. And these are the informations about the policies as well as the regulations of the Vietnamese state on construction materials. Thank you very much for your attention. Wow, thank you, Dr. Hong, Vice Directors of the Institute of Construction Material, for your very detailed and useful presentations on the policies for the construction materials. Institute of the Construction Materials, a member of the project, very strong in the green construction material and energy efficiency, and this is one of the very strong directions of the project. And next off, I would like to introduce a presentation from partners group of the projects. And in the project, we have the 5 partners from Germany and 3 partners from Vietnam. We have the 7 partners. They work together quite well. And up to now, we have a network of the partners, Vietnamese partner and the German partners. During and after the project, as the centers spin off from the projects, and we have the different group of the achievement. And the next, we have the presentation on the multidisciplinary insight from the University of Stuttgart, University of Hamburg, University of Tôn Đức Thắng and Tôn Đức Thắng University and Huishi to talk about the technical perspective, governance perspective, and construction perspective. And this is a interactions with material architecture and construction. And now I'd like to invite Mr. Weisweider, the head of CAMaRSEC project, to talk about the interdisciplinary relationship between projects.
Thank you, Tuan. Now we start with the introduction of the research results. And of course, we had many different topics, as you could see in the work plan introduced at the beginning. We worked together very closely between the Vietnamese partners and German partners, and you can see some of the faces who contributed to the following research. And I think it's the same for all the other presentations. There was a very close cooperation. We will try to share the presentation, so I would hope that the co-presenters are ready to come to the stage and to present some of the results. For the work where we were involved in as University of Stuttgart, it was mainly about climate, about building operation, but also partly about material research, life cycle assessment, and all this you will see in the next block. One of the tasks we had at the very beginning to understand about the outdoor climate. The outdoor climate, we heard that the climate is changing, and the climate is a very important boundary condition for sustainable building, for the reduction of energy consumption in buildings, not only to understand how materials behave, but also how people operate the buildings. And also people operate buildings in different ways. They do use air conditioning, or they use natural ventilation, and all that we want to understand. One important point was that we developed in our project outdoor climate data sets based on Copernicus 5 data. This is data which is available worldwide, and we acquired data sets for 25 locations in Vietnam, and then also a number of data sets for locations in this region. So there is an outreach of the CAMaRSEC project also to other countries, which you can see here. What we did with this climate data is that we developed data sets which are able to be used in simulation studies. So these data sets can be used for energy plus simulation, for energy building simulation, and it can also be used for WUFI simulation. WUFI is a simulation program developed by our research partners from Fraunhofer Institute for Building Physics, from Professor Künzel, which is able to investigate the hydrothermic behavior of building materials. And so these data sets will enable the computational simulation of buildings and also of materials. So this is a very important part, and we did two sets of data sets. One was for the climate in the past, and one we said is for the climate in the future. So when the climate is changing, it's a little bit hotter, it's a little bit more humid, and so on. So we have now these two data sets. Then, Ming, do you want to present? Yeah, okay. This is now on indoor climate measurement.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the research group from Tôn Đức Thắng University, we participated in this project 4 years ago, and I would like to present the measurement for housing development. The housing projects we focus high-rise apartment buildings. We try to understand how people make use of technical requirements, door, the window, etc., to make their living condition as comfortable as possible. Mr. Phạm Hải Hà took charge measurement in Hanoi, and I in charge in measurement in Ho Chi Minh City. We measured wind speed, CO2 concentration, indoor temperature, and we ended up with detailed questionnaires of the households with Phạm Hải Hà. Took the project in Hanoi with 100 data loggers, and in Ho Chi Minh City we aim to start at the end of 2019, but due to COVID we had to postpone our project for a while, and a few days ago we undertook the final phase of the project. We measured all the data. So we would like to introduce our measurement. What we find highly significant is by means of this project, we can understand much better how people use their apartments, what they expect from the design and construction. And on behalf of the project team, I would like to thank Mikael and Dirk for giving us the opportunity to learn more about the living conditions of Vietnamese people. Thank you so much.
We used then the data which were acquired by the extensive measurement campaign, and my colleague Yuan Sheng Wang at Stuttgart University, he developed a means to analyze this data in a meaningful way. The aim was the same way as we developed the outdoor climate conditions. We want to understand what is the indoor climate in typical Vietnamese residences. And as I said before, people in Vietnam use the buildings and the residents and the apartments either with air conditioning or without air conditioning, or of course some people sometimes use air conditioning and sometimes don't use air conditioning. And we can see this, of course, from the data. These colorful plots here, you can see each line is a measurement from one apartment, and you can see very blue dots, for example. I can show it here, very blue dots, which are indicating that people use air conditioning, and then you see here these red dots or the yellow spaces where you can see that air conditioning is not used. And of course, all this is it's a boundary condition for the materials which are used in the building. This is also indicative for the energy which is consumed in the building. So this is very important. The analysis of this data resulted in 3 different use profiles where we can say this apartment is used with air conditioning, this apartment is used with and without air conditioning, and this apartment is used as natural ventilation. These data sets can also be used then in building analysis and building simulation studies. So in future that engineers in Vietnam can do computational simulation with the outdoor climate, what I presented before, and also a realistic indoor climate. And that was the result also from the extensive measurement Min just presented, and which was supported by the Haas team from National University or the Hanoi University of Civil Engineering. And this is then one result which is then useful for future design of better buildings in Vietnam. And we have another aspect of this data which is presented by Harno.
According to the research outcomes in Hanoi, within 1 year, we are preparing a research paper led by Dirk and Wang according to the analysis of research data, we have found out that our heat comfort, and it was mentioned in a forthcoming building standards. Vietnamese people can adapt so well to the climate change. We use the research from other countries in Southeast Asia, and we get better adapted to the change of the environment, and we compare the climate data on the rooftop of H3 buildings on the HUCE campus, and it can be used for the future purpose of our project, and we can make full use of the facilities of the project. The first laboratory, and we have the best the state-of-the-art facilities, and we would like to thank CAMaRSEC project for the support. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Bùi Quốc Bảo. On behalf of the research group from Tôn Đức Thắng University, I would like to summarize very quickly the calculation of embodied energy. In the world, we apply a life cycle. We must take into account the energy not only in terms of consumption, but also the production and the demolition of the buildings. We focus on the embodied energy for the production of building materials. For example, the energy used for digging up the soil and how to transport the soil from the mining site to the construction site. And altogether we call it embodied energy, and we often forgot about that. So we realize that the energy used in the production, we need to pay more attention to this matter, and we focus on the four main points: hollow clay bricks, the traditionally baked clay products, AAC, lightweight concrete, and another kind of building materials, another lightweight material. We show here a diagram of production, and we send out a survey form to the manufacturers. It depends on the output product, and we have 4 manufacturers. The aim of the project is to establish a database data for embodied energy for the most popular building materials. Then we aim to compare those materials with each other, and from the characteristics we can recommend the manufacturer at each stage how to minimize the environmental impact. That's the end of my presentation. In continuation of the speech of Professor Bùi Quốc Bảo, and we would like to support and we try to combine the training process in our project. Mr. Nguyễn Ngọc Lâm and Văn Viết Phiên Ân, we developed these training programs for the classes of excellence, and it's a great honor for us. And we have here also a PhD candidate, and he has been undertaking an intensive investigations in this area, into this area. Next, I would like to introduce an interdisciplinary insights between University of Hamburg.
Yes, we also had another activity which was not in the work plan, which was after Corona, we organized an extensive delegation travel in Germany to connect the CAMaRSEC project team and the stakeholders of the project, of the CAMaRSEC project, with German institutions in order to show how the topics addressed by the CAMaRSEC project are addressed and in Germany by institutions like the German Energy Agency, for example, the German Institute for Building Technology, the German Environmental Agency, and also project partners like Baubildung Sachsen. So we took the opportunity last November to travel in Germany to make this connection, and I hope that there will be connection also after the CAMaRSEC project between the relevant institutions in Vietnam and Germany in the field of sustainable building. Now we have the conclusions of our activity field here. I think the idea was to develop tools and calculation methods for the performance-based energy efficiency assessment. We addressed this on the basis of our measurements, of our research, with the development of data sets of a better understanding, and this also links perfectly with what will be presented by Fraunhofer Institute and BIBM later with the material characterization and so on. So this is one line of developmental thought in the context and in the sense of our CAMaRSEC project. Then we wanted to present data sets with material characteristics. This is coming in a moment. And we wanted also to develop the basis for life cycle assessment in Vietnam, presented by Bao, but also addressed by Hong in the opening statement. I think now we are really ready to continue with Hamburg University. Michael Weidel will start.
Let us introduce some key achievements from Hamburg University and the whole project team from Hanoi University of Engineering and Tom Botang University. First, let me introduce what we are doing in general. So we deal, as mentioned before, with the building user dimension, socio-economic, cultural, political issues, the governance. We also support capacity building, and in the context of this project we have co-managed the conferences, also this conference today, facilitated basically because the main work was done by Utse, and we also have a strong belief that it's important to leave the academic bubble, to transfer academic knowledge to society, And that's why we develop different communication formats to do this kind of dissemination. I think one of the key instruments or achievements we have accomplished is this Competence Center for Sustainable Building, CCSB-VN. CCSB-VN is the host of today's event, and the idea was to bundle the expertise, the knowledge from different faculties inside Hanoi University of Engineering, but also to bundle knowledge from different institutions who deal in the field or do research in the field of sustainability all over Vietnam, to bring all this knowledge together and to disseminate this knowledge to the public. So we, at least in our proposal, said that CCSB-VN should develop like a key institution to achieve science-society transfer. And we also perceive that there are still what we call fragmentation and implementation gaps. And so we perceive CCSB-VN also as a cross-cutting institution to overcome this implementation and fragmentation institutional gaps. And finally, the overarching aim is to develop CCSB-VN as a leading think and do tank in Vietnam. This can only be done step by step. We are still at the beginning, but we have already achieved something in the context of CAMaRSEC. For example, we got third-party funding from a political foundation, from the Adenauer Foundation, CAS. They gave us money for a project over 3 years, which brings together the dimension of building with the dimension of human health. We call this project HOPE. In year 1, we had a very successful webinar series, also mostly thanks to the great activities and engagement of the colleagues from UCEP. I remember one webinar where we had over 600 participants, which is really a major achievement and shows strong interest of the public and the combination of building and health. And of course, this HOPE project also generated high visibility for CCSB-VN. Then we have the handbook for green housing and healthy living, which will be officially launched tonight at Goethe Institute. So all of you are warmly invited to switch from the campus of UCEP to the Goethe Institute campus. There will be some high-quality German food, complimentary. You will get a complimentary hard copy of the handbook either in Vietnamese or in English language. And of course, this handbook means also to bring together the knowledge and expertise from people with different scientific and academic backgrounds, from different universities. And by means of this handbook, which is not a pure scientific publication, but more a popular catalog, we try to reach a wide audience. Because in the end, the society has to make better decisions to promote sustainability. Actually, this picture here has been sent to me by Juan this morning. It means the production of the handbook just finished this morning, and now it's getting delivered to Goethe Institute right at the moment. So it was a last-minute action, and I would like to take the opportunity to thank all the project handbook team, Choi, Min, Ha, and all the others, chapter authors who contributed to this major effort. So all in all, more than 20 people submitted forewords, endorsement, or content chapters to this publication. And already writing this publication and interacting with all of you as editor-in-chief was some kind of integrative process, bringing into mind the holistic, comprehensive dimension of building sustainability. And after we publish it as a hard copy, soon it will also get published as online electronic edition. Then, I mentioned already tonight, we have the book launching event, and let me again summarize what we want to achieve with this kind of handbook publication. We understand it as a tangible learning tool which you can hold in your hand and flip through. And I think within the book, all the knowledge needed to promote sustainable building is really gathered from the different perspectives, not only from engineering, but also from the social science perspective, which is very important to me. It's a tool of awareness raising. It's also a governance tool because it brings together multiple stakeholders, not only from the academic world, also from the policy sector, from the civil society sector, and from the corporate sector. And we regard it as a state-of-the-art instrument to achieve what we call transformative change in the building sector. Another outreach instrument of our sub-project have been several so-called stakeholder engagement workshops. One workshop, for example, we did with the Green Sector Co-Subcommittee of the European Chamber of Commerce in Ho Chi Minh City. Another webinar we undertook with the Nguyen Trung University of Civil Engineering in central Vietnam. We did a simultaneous translation. We documented those webinars via YouTube, and all this kind of activity also proved to be very valuable in disseminating our message and bringing knowledge in the field of sustainable building to a wide audience. And again, these webinars facilitate and should enable transformative change. Then we have the conferences. We did a starter conference in October 2019. We did a status conference with the VIBM in March 2021. And today our sub-project is co-hosting the final presentation conference of the CAMaRSEC project. And we also publish YouTube videos on different activities. We have an explanatory introduction video. We have a video about a webinar video about the webinars. We have also a video promoting and giving visibility to the test stand in Halong City with a long interview with Andreas Segowitz. In that video here, well made, just published a few months ago, and I included a link to the video, to the PDF, which we will send later on to the audience. Now I would like to hand over to my colleague Dr. Thuy Nguyen, who will present about our research and empirical field work. We did a large-scale housing survey, and this will be presented by you. So it's yours.
Well, let me share some information about our study in Hamburg. One of the main activities of the project teams in Hamburg is to do a survey of the residential flat. We have the survey more than 1,000 flats in Ho Chi Minh City and households in Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi. And this is the first such a survey in Vietnam at the segment of the residential high-rise. And we focus on the viewpoint or perspective of the dweller of the high-rise building about the expectations and habit in terms of the electricity consumptions, and what are their interests or what are their interests in when they buy the flat, and what are their knowledge on the sustainable buildings in Vietnam. In this slide, you can see some of the pictures of in the left right corner, in the right side is a graph of the electricity consumptions of the household every year annually, and we collect the data on electricity consumptions in the flat in 2019 and 2020 in 5 housing development projects in Hanoi, especially the House Neo Green project in Ho Chi Minh City. Initial results showing that at the House Neo's projects, In average, electricity consumed at each flat is significantly lower than the traditional flat. And this is a Indonesian's result showing the impact of the sustainable residential high-rise on electricity consumptions. However, I believe that there will be multiple factors influence that electricity consumption. We need to do more study in the future. And this is a locations of the House Neo project. From study research, study result, and survey result of the high-rise flats in Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi, we also provide some evidences and paper on theories of sociology, sociological theory. We use technical and social transformation theory, and including the role of the actors at the different level of the governance. And evidences from research show that to create a change in policies as well as in the regulations, we need first the pressures from international commitment, from treatment and conventions, environment on the environment, as well as the country-made commitment on the actions for the climate change. Also, we need to consider the role of the actors, like individuals, in implementing the innovations, creating changes, and pilots. And those innovations will impact the regimes, which is the policies framework, in order to create changes in long-term
view.
And some of the conclusions. We can see that from the research result of the University of Hamburg, the electricity consumptions at the high-rise building flat that have the green building certified is 37% lower than traditional flats. And the research also show that the individual or the house, the dweller of the green building will have better or more environmentally friendly living style than the people living in the traditional flat. Maybe the reason being maybe they are the youngest generations and they have better background, or maybe they live in the traditional high-rise building. They have better educations and have better communications on sustainability. And this is only a initial research with the small number of sample. We need larger sample collections to get to better results. Thank you very much.
Let me show our conclusion slide as well. Here's some sound because 15 minutes I got, so I keep it very short. Thanks, Tui, for this extensive explanation. And I have to mention again, this survey could only have been achieved by support from the UNCE team and also from the university team from Atomic Time University. This was not an effort of us alone, but a joint effort. So let me summarize my bullet points, and please regard them in addition to the points Dirk has raised. So this is not a competing view, this is something which has to be added. And in the end, we have a list of bullet points we can discuss, maybe set priorities and bring those bullet points together. But this is a challenge or opportunity with the discussion which will be moderated by Juan and me later on. So I would say transformative change can only be achieved by paying regard to the socio-economic, building, user and governance dimensions. Evidently, every new research project should include in my opinion, well-elaborated science society strategies. I think also in Germany, many universities have recently established so-called transfer agencies. Today it's not anymore enough, sufficient just to do research in the academic bubble. You have to communicate your research to the public, and you have to communicate why your research is needed. Basically, I don't want to sound pathetic, why your research is needed for the survival of the planet. Because the planet is close to collapse in terms of global climate change. And from my perspective also, bringing in the experience of the CAS founded Hope project, we have to pay more regard to aspects of health and well-being into the building sector, because this is also something which affects the daily life of the building users, of the residents, and paying regard to that dimension can easily convince them more easily to take better decisions to promote sustainability. So that are my bullet point. Thanks for listening to our short presentations. And I think we have a coffee break, tea break right now. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for your very interesting presentation and impressive about the interdisciplinary research and the relationship between University of Hamburg, University of Tôn Đức Thắng, and Tôn Đức Thắng University and Hu Chi. One of the achievements of the project is the establishment of the competence centers for sustainability development. And after the break, we will have a discussions on how to develop that center to be independent after the project. And we will have, after the break, we will have a discussions about that topic. One of the achievements of the project is that there would be a habit change of the Vietnamese people towards healthy living housing. For example, one of the very good news is that when the project teams come to the household, and we can see very impressive data, is that with the space of 20 square meters with two people with the closed doors and window, only after 15 and 20 minutes is in the closed space inside the house is full of the CO2. And to explain for the people to just open the window a little bit, it not only change the data collected, but also change, create a new better habit for the people. For example, turn on the aircon but not close the window totally, and it would improve the living conditions of the house. And next, after break, we will have two more presentations on collaborations between Institute of Building Physics and Institute of Construction Materials and Institute of Urban Construction Buildings. And now we have the 15-minute break. And before and during the break, please take a group photos, and that photo will help us to do some communication activities. Please, we take a group photo outside and come back after 15 minutes. Thank you.
Trước hết tôi xin trân trọng cảm ơn Bộ Giáo dục và Nghiên cứu Liên bang Đức BMWF đã tài trợ cho dự án này, đồng thời về phía cơ sở là Trường Đại học Xây dựng Hà Nội đã hết sức giúp đỡ, hỗ trợ cả nhân lực và cơ sở vật chất cho các giảng viên tham gia dự án. Mục tiêu của dự án này là nghiên cứu phát triển vật liệu thích ứng với khí hậu trong bối cảnh kinh tế xã hội của Việt Nam, đồng thời phát triển năng lực xây dựng bền vững ở Việt Nam. Dự án có tính liên ngành cao giữa vật liệu, kiến trúc, môi trường. Trước hết tạo ra một mạng lưới hợp tác giữa hai bên, giữa các đối tác Đức và phía Việt Nam, và kể cả các hợp tác giữa các khoa liên ngành trong trường. Hiện nay, giảng viên trong trường khi tham gia dự án được hỏi các mô hình phát triển bền vững, được đào tạo về phần mô phỏng, thí nghiệm, đánh giá vật liệu liên quan đến môi trường nhiệt, khí, ẩm, độ bền của vật liệu. Dựa trên sự tích lũy về mặt chuyên môn, hợp tác này, các nhóm đối tác của dự án cùng nhau xây dựng các dự án mới từ các quỹ trong và ngoài nước, xuất bản khoa học, phát triển các vật liệu bền vững mới, hình thành và xây dựng dần các lớp đào tạo về mô phỏng và tiết kiệm năng lượng cho các kiến trúc sư, xây dựng các đề xuất, vân vân. Kết quả điển hình đạt được của dự án này là phát triển dự án Revomat, tài trợ từ BMBF, phát triển vật liệu xây dựng hiệu quả, tiết kiệm nguồn tài nguyên, dự án tài trợ của Viện CAS, tài trợ phát triển môi trường hướng tới sức khỏe lành mạnh cho người dân và dự án tài trợ của Bộ Xây dựng về phát triển nhà ở cho người nghèo, sử dụng vật liệu địa phương, cung cấp các bộ dữ liệu về biến đổi khí hậu.
Viện Vật liệu Xây dựng khi tham gia vào dự án CAMaRSEC này thì nhận được khá nhiều các cái kết quả ưu việt, như là đào tạo được cán bộ trong quá trình nghiên cứu và thử nghiệm tính năng của vật liệu. Thứ hai nữa là xây dựng được một phòng thử nghiệm về tính năng nhiệt của vật liệu rất là hiện đại.
Next, we have a presentation as well as a report of the project team and their research outcomes. Now I would like to invite the next presenter from an interdisciplinary perspective based on a cooperation between IBP Fraunhofer Stuttgart and the IBM. After that, we shall have a presentation by Baubildung Sachsen together with Construction and Urban Works College in order to promote sustainable buildings in Vietnam, including technical issues, materials, and management governance. It's a great honor for me to introduce Professor Dr. Hartwig Gunsen from IBP Fraunhofer. Please, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is our sub-project, and I just want to give you a short introduction to it. When we started to think about energy-saving measures, it's about half a century ago in Germany, after the oil crisis, when oil was scarce and people were afraid of not being able to heat their buildings during winter time. We started, first of all, to put insulation on our walls. Then we realized that wasn't enough because we lost a lot of energy due to ventilation through windows and especially gas and things like that. So we changed the windows and so on. And then we thought everything was solved, but there was one disturbing factor, and that was moisture. Moisture not only increases the thermal conductivity of all building materials, including insulation materials, so it actually is counterproductive to your energy saving measures, but it also causes a lot of damage, and still does. Even today, all the experience we have, most of the money spent for repair of damage is going to damage of moisture. So that's quite important to know. And if you want to build in a sustainable way, you have to make sure that damage doesn't occur and degradation. You have to make sure that the buildings are durable. So we did this together with our partners from the IBM and from the Ton Trung University in Ho Chi Minh City. And now I will show you what the rationale was before we go to the virtual experiments and research we've done. We talked about all this, rising energy consumption, exploitation of natural resources. Also material data are often not available. That's another problem. And we don't know much about performance. We've learned a lot in Germany by doing measurements. When we saw that damage was occurring or there was too much moisture in the insulation materials, we tried to figure out why. So we examined the performance of building materials and building constructions with different ways. We started with field tests. Then we did a lot of the laboratory tests also to check the performance of the building materials. And just not very recently, but 2 decades ago, we also started to do hydrothermal simulations, so we were able to predict the behavior. The hydrothermal behavior means that you look at the energy behavior of the building, but also the behavior towards moisture. Now, the main questions were, first of all, do the materials comply with the energy code in Vietnam? That means, do you actually get what you pay for when you buy insulation material? Then the question was, how much, let's say, laboratory capacity do you have in Vietnam to make sure that you can check those insulation materials? And another problem was also that there was a need to replace the fire clay bricks with other materials which perform as well as these fire clay bricks, or at least as well, in order to retain this natural resource. And of course, damage-free constructions, I already mentioned that, but to, let's say, transfer the experience that we have in Germany to Vietnam is not so easy because the climate conditions are completely different. You won't get frost damage, for instance, here, at least not in many places. Okay, now I hand over to Mrs. Nixon, who will explain a little bit what we did for laboratory testing, how we, let's say, looked at the different facilities, created new facilities, and different tests.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the experts from VIBM, I would like to show you some results as a cooperation between VIBM and IBP Fraunhofer within the framework of the project. The key point of this project component is to establish a laboratory for energy-saving materials at VIBM. This laboratory serves to identify all the parameters related to energy of building materials as requested by the law in Vietnam. Secondly, we aim to understand more about the demand in the market in order to evaluate the durability of materials in the context of Vietnam. On the screen, you can see IBP experts are advising the IBM staff, and together we conduct research to successfully develop the concept energy saving laboratory in Vietnam. As a result of the project, the two concepts of such a laboratory has been developed. First, an energy saving laboratory at a basic level with a full range of equipment to test the main characteristics of materials such as thermal conductivity as required by CCSB-VN number 9. Second, the energy saving laboratory at an advanced level with all the equipment as aforementioned. In addition, we have devices that measure hydrothermal conductivity of materials with simulation software to test the hydrothermal conductivity of materials, the durability of materials in buildings, as well as to have developed new materials in accordance with energy-saving requirements in buildings. The next category is field test. The two groups of experts from the IBM and IBP Fraunhofer worked together and selected 8 walling systems, including the ones made of conventional materials, for example, red bricks, and those made of new materials such as AAC bricks, firm concrete bricks, and other walling types supported by a Vietnamese company. In this field test, the group constructed a walling system with different materials and embedded moisture and heat sensors on the wall surface, with plastering and finishing materials to compare the characteristics as well as durability of materials. Red bricks with new materials should be compared in terms of heat transfer, moisture conductivity, and durability in the context of Vietnam. This field test has been conducted in Hạ Long City, Quảng Ninh Province. The reason for choosing Hạ Long City was that the weather conditions there are quite harsh. We need to see which materials could be the most appropriate and durable in consideration of heat and moisture conductivity in comparison with conventional materials. And the field test results could be used to compare and assess to find out if red brick might be replaced with which materials: AAC bricks, foam concrete bricks, or walling panels. The other purpose is to collect field data and compare them with the lab-based data. How different heat and moisture conductivity can be in order to have a good orientation in reality in Vietnam.
Okay, thank you. So I continue. I mean, field tests are very important, but they are also expensive. And if you want to design a new building, it's very expensive to make that in a, let's say, a small building first to see how that works. So therefore, we need these high-performance simulations. Once you have validated the simulations by comparing the results of the simulations on the field tests, then you can be sure that for this climate zone it works well, and then you can predict how this kind of construction or also other construction will work in practice. What we have found out is we did simulations, for instance, for Hanoi and also Ho Chi Minh City, and we found that especially for the wall constructions, the Hanoi climate is more challenging because you have more driving rain. And since masonry and other porous building materials absorb water during these rain events, they have a higher moisture content, which can also lead to more or faster degradation. What's also important is that if you are, let's say, not so familiar with different techniques in the laboratory or simulation techniques, then this is something we also provided. To do these Garber plate tests to measure exactly the thermal conductivity is not that easy. So even we do round robin tests every once in a while to make sure that all laboratories get the same results. Why do we do this? Because if one laboratory shows better results, all companies will go to this laboratory. But that doesn't make sense, and it's not fair either. So therefore, this is very important to have a reference check here for thermal conductivity. We also did the movie online trainings because of COVID. We were not able to do this here in Vietnam, but we will carry on with this, and we did training there, and we will have future online training, which is sufficient for just doing these simulations. It would not be sufficient for doing the laboratory tests. So the conclusions. I think EIVN has expanded the capacity first to determine thermal, but also hydrothermal parameters, and for the reference checks to be sure that materials comply with the Vietnamese energy code. It could also be demonstrated that there are alternatives to fired clay bricks, but they might absorb more moisture, so you need to look at the exterior plasters that you are employing. And as you've seen, it was already explained, the outdoor test facility has also been established. How could we go forward from there? First of all, I think an outdoor test facility is very important and should be used for further projects. It's not only to have a reference hydrothermal simulations or laboratory tests, it's also because if there's something very new, practitioners rely more on the results of these field tests than they would on the results of the simulation. And also what you could also do is, and that would be important, to look at the exterior plaster systems that you have and see how they perform in practice. Because we have seen that, as I said already, for clay brick, it doesn't matter that much, but for other materials, it matters a lot what kind of exterior plaster you have, especially when you have a lot of driving in. And I think going from there, it would also make sense because the test facility is rather small to apply this more on demonstration projects. So real houses where you can then also monitor performance. I think this was all from my part here. I thank you very much, and I think questions will be answered at the end.
Well, let me have some more additions. In this project, our institute has a very fortunate to receive equipment from the project, and this is a equipment to measure the heat retention ratios, and our staff also have been provided with the training to operate that equipment. I'd like to thank the project manager, Mr. Dick, for your support and for your collaborations in that very successful project. Thank you very much. Well, thank you, Professor Bondel and Dr. Lê Thị Song for your presentations. One of the achievements of the project is the equipment and training of the staff of the institute, and this is an invaluable value from such the projects, especially the interdisciplinary project between materials and environment is very important. Next, I would like to introduce Professor Đào Việt Hà, Vice Rector of the College of Urban Buildings to talk about the collaborations between Saxophony Vocation College and College of Urban Buildings.
Để em tiếp nối cho anh nghỉ nhé.
Thưa ngài dự án và các cộng sự.
Dear Mr. Dirk Schwerder, the project leader and the partner in Vietnam, we are so happy today to receive an invitation to participate in such an important conference, the CUWC. We haven't participated so frequently in the project. We hope that we can take part in the project in the transfer period. First of all, we would like to introduce ourselves. I would like to explain why we are invited by the German partners to participate in this project. We form part of the Ministry of Construction, and we are one of the leading institutions in Vietnam in terms of building and infrastructure development, including green building technology. Currently, we are offering 30 different courses, and one of the 4 programs of international importance. We have a close links with German partners for over 15 years, especially important the project in Bao Giác Dền. In 2013, we completed a 2-story modern house with 240 square meters floor areas with the use of AAC. The total value about 470,000 euros. The whole construction process was undertaken by the staff and students of our college under the close supervision of the German experts, and this headquarters of UWC. The former director was Professor Trần Tuấn Long. In 2021, we completed the first green building transfer building in Vietnam with a total investment about 3.5 million euros with the latest green building technologies supported by German and Belgian specialists, and I will talk about it later. Recently, our students have experience with this project, and in the collaboration with German partners, we are staying up to date of the technology. In construction technology, we focus also on sending our constructor to Germany. We are considering some content, some topics related to building materials, and we included it in our training programs. We have conducted research, and we may get used to the 4 modules as a result of this project. The fundamental knowledge, the characteristics of the plaster, heat and moisture resistance, and this can be reflected in our green building project. These are some pictures we discussed with German partners. We will transfer the result of the project if possible and available. And now I would like to introduce the achievement of the project and how we integrate this in our training programs. 1 month ago, the students from HUCE came to our campus at the Green Building Transfer Center in Vietnam. We think there are so many benefits. We can enhance the knowledge of our staff, academic staff, and we get approach to the transfer of the vocational training in the construction industry. At the moment, our staff are trained in Germany in consideration of the training. These are the picture of our Green Building Technology Transfer Center in Vietnam. These are 5-story buildings, and when equipped with high state-of-the-art technology, including solar technology, our students can come and see the building every day. We also take part in some parts of the project, and we can test the building materials, and we try to put it into practice. And you can see here some exercises that our students they can do that to practice, and if allowed, we identify the site for this one close to our campus. It's not far from our green building. These are some pictures of the conference, sightseeing tours, study tours in Germany, working sessions in November 2022. And I would like to provide some information on the green building on our campus. It's a green facade system. Construction area is about 900 square meters. The common structures of the building consisting of different layers, sun shading system, ventilation system. We have wind turbines and solar photovoltaic panels on the roof. Especially, we have a heat pump system in our buildings. The geothermal techniques, we can take the water from the underground to cool the buildings through the heat transfer facilities. Heat exchange. The geothermal techniques I would like to explain here. The whole process, the whole construction process. Our students can learn so much from it, and they can also observe the whole process on site. Particularly, we can supervise this process with the support from the German and Belgian specialists. And I have talked about the capacities of our college, and we strongly believe that we can take part in the next step of the project. Thank you so much for your attention.
Well, thank you, Dr. David Ha, for your detailed presentations on the result of the collaborations between partners in the project. And the College of the Urban Buildings has a very good, very beautiful campus with the building donated by MOC which is the zero energy, zero emissions buildings. And if you have the chance, please visit that building with smart building management system. And this presentation is conclude the presentation part about the achievements of the project. And as you can see, we have a lot of information, and we cannot tell you all the information in a single meeting. Different partners are pursuing different research topic, and they also do research, training, transfer, conducting experiments in the lab or in the field, and network getting broader with better achievement. And now we move to a discussion part. We have two topics for discussions. First of all, we talk about the topic related to presentations and the way forward, how to continue our job, and from this result or achievement, how can we formulate new projects and what are the future directions for us. And for these discussions, I'd like to invite Dr. Michael Weber together with me to moderate that sessions. Michael Weber, can you please go up to the stage together with me to moderate?
So we have now about 20 minutes time for our discussion, and I would like to start first with questions from your side in regard of the previous presentations. We have now Q&A after each presentation, so we should take the opportunity first to answer questions from your side in regard of the 4 presentations or 5 presentations we've heard so far. Yannick, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, well, so congratulations for all your achievements. You know, I was also lucky enough to also attend when you launched the project. So there were a lot of, I would say, ambitious objectives for this project, and I could see that many of them have been achieved. However, I would like to get more precise information if possible. So first of all, are you going to publish, I would say, all the technical studies that you have worked out? I would say through the analysis of materials, through the record of all the data in apartments, to work out benchmarks, all those very important information. Because so far, I feel that we touched the surface, but I think that you guys went down into the details, and that's what I would want to hear from a technical perspective. So that's one thing. Second question is that as of today, who is now composing this competence center for sustainable building? Yeah, what is the way ahead? Because yeah, definitely myself think that this is mandatory for Vietnam to establish kind of center like this. During the time I was working for UNDP, we pushed strongly for kind of energy efficiency excellence center, but somehow it's the same. But it needs to have this kind of official center that will somehow regroup all the different expertise from the private sector, of course universities, but also from the government, so that at least we can all work and have this kind of permanent kind of training center. So that's my second question. And yeah, I would say more or less is this physical access to the data that we collect in apartments, the parameters. Yeah, I would say from the IDM. Now, what are the physical values that you can record now? Standards in Vietnam, is it Q values? Are you also dealing with SSGC of raising and all those kind of aspects?
Thanks, Yannick. So the first question would go to Dirk. The second question would be answered by myself. And the third question should be answered by Dr. Hong, I would say, in regard of VIVM. So maybe we have the mobile mic or point one mic.
Okay, I try to answer the first question. All the achievements we have done, will it be available after our project? We have, of course, the obligation to write a research report this is very important, and we will make this to a large extent available. There are some publications, scientific publications in the making at the moment, and we also hope, because we have extensive data which we cannot analyze ourselves and so on, there are thoughts how to publish this data as a raw data set. But this is of course something we have to find out how to do it. There is data from the household survey, of course, but I'm talking now about also our data from the measurement campaign, from the 50 apartments in Hanoi and the apartments and other locations in Ho Chi Minh City. This is a rich asset which we have, and but the project is over, so we won't have much time to analyze everything and to get everything out of the data. I hope we can publish that. Shen, I think you're looking into it, how to do it, and I think there are ways to do it. And the other thing, what we always try to do is not only to do research, but also to enable our colleagues and also ourselves to acquire new data. This is a laboratory setup and so on, so there will be more and more data from our project, even if the project is finished. And also the measurement instruments, which are now at Hanoi University of Civil Engineering, they are available for future use and for future research. And so I think CAMaRSEC will have an impact afterwards. And the data we have now, I hope we can make them available, and then someone is willing to dig into the data and to do the analysis. This is the other part, of course. Yes.
Yeah, this leads to the second question about the Competence Center for Sustainable Living in Vietnam. So this CCSB-VN would also be an institution to host and to publish those data or put it on their website and make it available to the public. But some data, of course, we have to publish first in a scientific journal, otherwise it's somehow burned. But in principle, I would say we should publish the relevant data to the Competence Center for Sustainable Living in Vietnam, CCSB-VN, also to give it some kind of meaning. We have to fill this kind of center with life, with different projects. One project would be the project funded by the Konrad Adenauer Foundation. One project was this handbook publication, which will happen today, the launching event, but of course we need more. We need more activities. We actually applied from German Technical Cooperation, GIZ, as integrated SIM expert, like our colleague here, but they said they are not able to do the funding, so we wanted to have a permanent position of an expert to support this for like 2 or 3 years. But we haven't been successful. We applied with the German Academic Exchange Service for a long-term lecturer position, but they have also some kind of budget constraints, so we are working on that, but in the end we tried our best. And after the end of the CAMaRSEC funding, it's basically the responsibility of our colleagues from Hanoi University of Engineering to continue this kind of effort and to make it a lasting institution. But it's a challenge. I see it perfectly, and I'm half optimistic, half pessimistic, honestly. We will see. The third question would go to Ms. Hong.
Vâng, tôi xin trả lời câu hỏi thứ 3 về tính năng của vật liệu. Thì đối với cả dự án này thì Viện Vật liệu xây dựng là
Well, I'd like to answer the third question about the material characteristic. For this project, our institute is the institute to test and compare the materials from traditional brick, unburned brick, AAC, and form concrete, different kind of materials in terms of heat and moisture conductivities, moisture, thermal moisture characteristic, and other basic characteristic of the material. Compare in the lab as well as the test, field test. The result of the test already put in the report of the components of the project. If you are interested, please contact our institute. We will post that result on the on the website and to convey to transfer the result of the projects to all to the targeted audience. Well, thank you, Ms. Hong. Thank you, Professor Dirk and Professor Mikhail. And now we open floor for other questions. Well, thank you, project, for organizing this very interesting workshop. Reporting achievements and research result of the project. I'm very pleased to know about the project, the result of the project. I also have some questions. I would like to raise some issues that are practical for the project. First of all, in the projects, we have the component of the surveys to calculate the power consumptions levels of different households, and we would like to have such a data. And because in MOC we have multiple projects with the same purpose, and I'd like to know what kind of criteria for the survey in order to calculate the power consumptions level. And I'd like to be very much to integrate that data from this project with the data from other sources, so that we can see better the power consumption or energy consumptions of the household. Secondly, and so that we hoping to have a information or data or result from the project. Secondly, another very interesting and useful result is the life cycle of the energy consumption life cycle of the buildings, and you can calculate the energy consumption for the materials that are not available in previous projects. So I hope that we can work together in the future in order to close that gap, the power consumptions of the materials. Thirdly, we have a pilot project on the net zero. So I wonder if there is any net zero buildings in Vietnam, or it's just a pilot project of the college. To my knowledge, the Daikin group are now building of the net zero building in the Ho Chi Minh City. So there's an issue that after designing, they cannot get the building license because the technical characteristic, for example, the floor space, pipe space, and the heat and electricity conduction is very difficult to get a license. So in short, there would be issues with the licensing in Vietnam. So I wonder if the licensing organizations, do they have any understanding on the net zero in order to issue the license or permit to construction permit? Right now in the university, we just developed a technical specifications, and for example, a space spare for the ducting system, and we have this certain requirement on the ducting system on the building. However, the Department of Construction do not provide any permit for such kind of criteria. So I think there needs to be awareness raising for the permit issuing people. And another point is that the physical parameters, when we calculate energy efficiencies of the building, and it related to the outer layers, and we do not have the parameters of the new materials on the heat transfer characteristic of the new materials. And we also work with the material department of MOC to calculate a norms for the new materials, what the difference between the norms for the new materials and compared to the old materials, conventional materials. So, for example, when you use the foam brick, that would have larger moisture conductivities and different use of the outer plaster layers and other construction technique, for example. So we do not have any specific calculations for that. So the constructions unit hesitate to use that new technology. So I think really with regard to the new materials, we need to research about the constructions method for those using those materials. So I think these are the real issue that we need to solve in this project of the co-security project. Some of your questions are related to directly to the projects, and others issue are the idea for the following projects like moisture conductivity capabilities of the materials or hydrothermal characteristic, and on the measurings the energy efficiencies of the buildings. So maybe Ms. Ha, the director of the Environment and Architecture faculties, can answer your questions, or we can together to answer first questions. So Ms. Ha, please, can you have some opinion, the criteria that we use? And this is a little bit technical topic, but can you just provide some criteria for measuring the energy consumptions of the building? Or another members of the project? We have a person who Ms. Chang, who are directly involved in the measurings of the criteria as soon as the input the data into the simulation software.
Efficiency, because today we have not so much data on the energy consumption, and we don't know how the household behavior in the room, in their apartment. Actually, this is very important because when we develop an energy standard, building standard, we need to know what is the baseline, and if we need to improve it, or it's already enough, or if our default data made is makes sense or just cost money. I think it's very important. And during the energy consumption data collection project by us, we found out there may be some matter we need to be improved. For example, when we calculate the energy data, normally we need to make some calculation. For example, we calculated the monthly data, but it's for the whole apartment, and sometimes we need to, for example, to calculate how many energy we use per square meter. But the problem is, if an apartment has a large area, it doesn't mean the apartment will consume more energy than the other apartment with small area. For example, if I have money, I can buy a huge apartment, maybe 200 square meters, but I just live alone. And the other people maybe is not such rich, maybe they all live in a small area, but has many people but use more energy exactly than that one, than the other case. So it's difficult to do such a calculation. So I think it's very important in our project is to calculate such data with many description. For example, this data we collected from this apartment, how is this apartment, how many occupants live in this apartment, and about energy use also. For example, AC operation.
if the occupants in this apartment use more air conditioning, that means they have a higher energy consumption, and this data should be put together, integrated in the data site, and in the future we can do more in-depth analysis about this data. I think I hope I can maybe answer some of the questions of you, because you asked really many questions. I can't remember all of them. Yeah, that's the first question. And second question, maybe the second is my answer, but it's also my question. There is so many research we can do in the future. You talk about the heat transfers through the bone material and about new material. If it's suitable in Vietnam, we should discuss. For example, Kunze had talked about the moisture problem in the construction in the building. We know sometimes when the surface, internal surface of the wall has a high moisture, what can happen? The mold will be built and there are some structure damage will be happened. But during our measurement, on-site measurement, we measured the internal surface temperature. Exactly for in the last week, I did that together with our colleague from DDTU and also from Hanoi University. We together do the measurements and we measure the internal surface temperature in Ho Chi Minh City during the, I think now it's the very hot days in Ho Chi Minh City. And we find out that the internal surface, the moisture is not very high. It's not very high. Why? Because the surface temperature is very high. If the surface temperature is high, that means the air layer near the surface has a very the humidity is not very high. So the wall surface cannot absorb so much humidity. That's due to there's the wall thermal insulation of the external wall is not so high. That means the U value is very high. So the internal surface temperature is high. That means the moisture in the internal surface is low. But imagine that if we in the future try to reduce the cooling energy consumption, what should we do? We need to build some wall thermal insulation system, and this will make the indoor surface temperature lower than now. And if the occupants, after using the air conditioning, open the window, the humid air comes from outside inside, and the surface temperature is lower than the dew point, then what happens? Most problem and most destruction problem. So we see that there is a conflict between the energy consumption, between how to make the energy, how to reduce the cooling energy, but how to protect or avoid the moisture problem. And if you don't open the window, the indoor air quality will be bad. So you see, the problem get together and it's not easy to solve. That's, I think there's more topic we can be talked after CAMaRSEC project. We have now many data, but we need to prepare the data site online and to make everyone can understand what that means and then can do from different perspective and to analyze data, to use data and to create more meaningful research work in the future.
Thank you. So thanks for this very valuable comment. We have unfortunately only 10 minutes left for the discussion. So please, if you have further questions, be concise in regard of the guy who is asking the question, and the one who answered the question should be concise as well. Sorry? Who has another question? the life cycle analysis. You want to answer?
Thank you, Ms. Lợi, for the question, especially for the one regarding the life cycle of a building. This is a very interesting and significant issue at present when we together strive for sustainability. One of the core parts of this project is how to evaluate building materials in buildings to see how much energy we may save by replacing conventional materials with new ones. Because the realization as a process does not take place in one phase only, but it deals actually with the whole project. We cannot simply know how to construct a building, but we have to pay due attention to other aspects. The selection of materials in buildings, for example, for walls, must take into account the energy in the fabrication and manufacturing, as well as the emission into the environment from the exploitation of raw materials, production, construction to installation, and even maintenance plus demolition. As Associate Professor Dr. Bùi Quốc Bảo discussed earlier. Currently, we are using the data and software programs. Then we give specific data, evaluate and compare, then propose if we should use a specific materials in the context of Vietnam. Our special thanks go to Ms. Lợi, who comes from the Office of Vietnam Association of the Built Environment. The third question is somewhat related to net zero building. Mr. Ha, can you tell us more about the criteria and what should be raised as a question to be answered? How to certify that building with the current legal documents in Vietnam? Can you say something? For example, describe a little bit of such a building, which criteria apply to the investment from the Ministry of Construction, a net zero energy building in Vietnam. As far as we know, this is the very first and the only building in Vietnam so far. The Ministry of Construction invested directly in this building, which has now been completed. We are now in the training and technology transfer. There are many data and indicators. You can visit this building in person, which is open to for you to make observations. We provide more details for study purpose. We focus on technology transfer in form of training classes taught by experts for everyone who wants to know how this building works in reality, including legal issues. This study can be summarized and the recommendations have been made in consideration of the local context. This is a research and transfer building. We have support from German specialists and Belgian building scientists come to help us observe the operation of this building. With support from Germany and Belgium, we will make a proposal to the Ministry of Construction of how to operate a building step by step. This is a very good example in Vietnam when we have no particular or specific criteria. If any of you want to know more about the building, please do not hesitate to contact Mr. Ha. Please raise your hands. We would love to hear more from you. Mikhail, do you have any suggestions for a better result with what we have achieved so far?
Task is too much. I cannot answer. Sorry. Yeah, I think it has to be a process which starts maybe now. We have to continue that communication process with all people involved in the CAMaRSEC. Maybe we have, this is CAMaRSEC 1 and we achieve CAMaRSEC 2. As has been mentioned by many people here, there is still a big demand for further research. So I see a lot of potential in this field. We have to make this need for research, we have to communicate this need for research to the funding agency. I think that's very important because the funding agency has to know about our expertise, our collective wisdom, our well-established multi- and interdisciplinary research communication, research structures, but it's still a challenge. We have a war, we have budget constraints in Germany, and competition from other research teams with other fields, so it's not easy to convince the funding agency, the ministry, and our ministry to give another 2 million from CAMaRSEC 2. This will be a big challenge, but we work on that. I think it would be a shame actually to stop this kind of fruitful cooperation we have established in the past 6 years, but it's a responsibility of all of us to work on that and to convince them to work out smart proposals to receive funding in the future.
Thank you, Michael, about the suggestions. How about you? Because final conclusion, no, we can have tonight. But actually, we have another project that we have in mind, so we can.
Yes, I can talk about how we can move these topics forward. I think they became more and more important. When we started the project, sustainable building was something people were talking about and some people were interested in, but now it's really necessary and everyone knows that it's necessary to protect the climate. He was laughing, but I have the impression that there are more people who know about this, also the topic of life cycle assessment, resource efficiency, recycling of building materials, and so on. So this is everywhere now, and so I'm very confident that there will be another opportunity to work in this group, and perhaps also to extend the group with other people. There was this very extensive question, which I thought it was a very good summary of everything we want to do and we need to do in future. There are a lot of things we have recognized that they are not finished yet. Life cycle assessment, I think the result of our project is that there's a lot of information missing, that there's a lot of research to do, but that it's really necessary to approach this in one way or another in Vietnam, but also in other countries. In Germany, we have to make more use of this data and so on. Near zero energy buildings, this is a topic everywhere, and how to achieve that. Of course, we have made a small contribution by understanding how projects are operated, how they are conditioned and so on, but this will also change in future, so there is a lot of more things to do, but the task is there, how to make buildings near zero emission buildings, but also then the next topic is how to supply energy in a carbon neutral way, because we will not be able to make our buildings totally energy efficient and energy neutral. So there are more and more topics which we recognize. The other topic, we always talk about people in the buildings. It's very important to educate people, also to find out what people think. But the people are not only the people who live in the buildings, but also the people who design the buildings, so we have to support the designers. This is something we try to achieve here, and there are more topics to do, and these are people who build the buildings, the construction workers who are responsible for durability of the structures, who are also responsible to build the buildings in a way that they can be recycled, that they can be resource efficient and so on, so we can continue with our work, and there are more topics. Actually, the day after tomorrow we will be in Da Nang. There is a big conference from the German-Vietnamese Science Day, where the German Ministry of Education and Research and also the Ministry of Science and Technology from Vietnam will discuss with researchers, with practitioners and also with other organizations how to continue with the research funding in future between the countries, and I'm very confident that there will be a call very soon where we can apply again and have another big projects and perhaps also small projects. I think what CAMaRSEC achieved was to make a connection between BIBM, Fraunhofer Institute for Building Physics, the universities and so on, and we work on relevant topics. We started to cooperate, we have gotten to know each other, and I think that is very important, and we invite other people to use our data. We publish as much as possible of the data. We publish also the questionnaires, the surveys that there is, that people can reuse our approaches and perhaps improve them as well. So all this is in the making, so I'm confident that this is continuing, and I think that was my wrapping up and closing. Michael wants to say something.
I think there's still a chance to work together even without funding, and which is important in a strategic way. And this way to work together without funding is to work on joint scientific publications. Because Yannick mentioned about it, we are sitting on tons of data which has not been fully evaluated and which have not been published yet. And this tons of data offer really huge potential to publish really loads of publication in different scientific journals. And for example, Bauer recently invited Dirk and me to join a conference paper about some survey in a school, and I think we should invite each other as well in the future to try to strengthen the connection between us and try to work on this kind of level, and it also helps us to gain more visibility in terms of future proposals. But this is something I just wanted still to mention. Sorry, Dirk, I took away your talking time.
So how about the idea for we all looking for the funding, and one idea is about looking for the program funding, and thank you for the support for help and support us to find and contact with some funds like the GIZ and also CAS and also the DIB, and how about the idea of this, and you can expect something from the student.
Well, in this areas we have a the part of this looking for the new donors or new funding. One interesting, beautiful part in this project is that the German friend help the Vietnamese partners to approach the international fundings in the areas of the sustainability or sustainable development. For example, to approach GIZ on the green environment, green design, or we can approach the KIAS in terms of the innovations promotions. Right now, one of the approach is that VNCAS have finance our project every year to develop a green environment and healthy environment for the people every year, and we have the funding from the KIS for 1 year, and we can get the funding for another 2 years, and if we can have a good result we can continue our funding. And for the new project, new ideas for concept for the projects, for example, we develop a low cost, extremely low cost housing for the poor people using the local materials. For example, pressurized coin or soil to make a brick, or use the local resources to develop to construct the houses for the local people. So with the cost of around the 2,000 euro for the house with a space of 40 to 50 square meters, it is quite a challenging concept, and I hope that we can continue that project in Hòa Bình, Cao Bằng, and some other mountainous area. And this is another very good outcomes of the project.
I think we are at the end of the conference. You want me to talk also about Regumat? Regumat is another project where we have still some funding for one more year, where we can come to Vietnam and cooperate. We can invite Vietnamese colleagues to Germany. So this is not the end, but we finish now the conference for CAMaRSEC. I think you all got the idea what we have done, how we can connect to your work, and we are very happy to do that. Please contact us, any one of us, and we are very happy to use the results, the work of the last 4 years, of the last 8 years, or how long was it, I don't know, to advance green building in Vietnam. Thank you very much. Then I think it's my part to close. Okay, thank you.
The result in training and research. At the end, Professor Dirk Schwerder, he has made the conclusions of our project, and we still have time to sit here, and we hope that after the project we will make more connections to have more concepts and ideas for the future outcomes. And we would like to thank you for coming here to Hanoi University of Civil Engineering. We would like to thank our partners, foreign partners, domestic organizations for your fruitful collaboration. Although the project will end in June, and we hope that we have more opportunities to meet. We can meet here and there. And we should stay healthy and enjoy happy life. Thank you very much. We would like to share a fascinating fact. Our handbook with the contribution from 20 experts, green housing and healthy living. We have a book launch ceremony at 6 p.m. today at Goethe Institute. And we would like to invite you to join us how to disseminate the knowledge in this project to the wider public.